Hello and welcome. When years of frosty relations between two strong countries begin to melt, how does it shake up the global political dynamic? China and Taiwan are improving their ties, but the US is caught in a political dilemma between them. Taiwan wants to upgrade its aging military hardware by buying dozens of F-16 fighter jets from the United States, which is supposed to provide the Taiwanese with sufficient weapons to defend themselves under the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act. But China strongly opposes the multi-billion-dollar deal proposed by Taipei supporters in the US Congress. In Shanghai on Monday, President Obama praised the reduction of tensions between China and Taiwan and said there is no need to change Washington's One China policy. But if he approves the controversial weapons sale after returning from his Asia trip, America's relationship with China could suffer, just at a time when the United States badly needs Beijing's support on contentious issues, international issues such as North Korea and Iran. Today we look at how Taipei's current pro-Beijing stance is shaping international politics and ask, how do improving relations with China affect Taiwan's chances of remaining independent from the mainland? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or email and we'll take your phone calls on the show as well. Joining me in Washington to discuss these issues is Bob Yang, president of the Formosan Association for Public Affairs, a DC-based advocacy group promoting Taiwan's right to full independence. Dr. Yang is also associate professor at the University of Missouri School of Medicine in Kansas City. Also on the show we have Bonnie Glaser, a senior fellow for the CSIS Freeman Chair in China Studies, who consults for the US government on East Asia. Ms. Glaser has also written extensively on China's relations with the international community. I welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, Dr. Yang, I'll start with you and ask, how significant do you see this dynamic change between China and Taipei? Is it another ripple in the sort of ups and downs that occurs, or is this a real change in the way things stand?
I think this is a sea change. The election of Ma Ying-jeou to the presidency of Taiwan actually makes Taiwan face twin threats. One being the traditional military threat from China, the other being the economic threat that is occurring to Taiwan now. It's in the name of dialogue, of increased interaction, but in actuality, the over-reliance of Taiwan's economy on China poses a great threat to China in the sense that this is a non-military means for China to dictate political choices in Taiwan.
So sir, what is Taiwan looking for in return for its cooperation with China, with the change it's taken in being more pro-Beijing? What sort of reward is in it for Taipei?
Well, President Ma Ying-jeou in Taiwan is saying that this led to a reduction in tensions, which is good. But at the same time, he also said that closer economic cooperation will lead to prosperity in Taiwan, which is highly debatable. The fact is, Taiwan will become overly dependent on China, and it has already occurred. So when you weigh the benefits and the negatives, in my opinion, the negatives outweigh the benefits in terms of the current interaction between Taiwan and China.
We'll look at those more of those in a moment, but Bonnie Glaser, good to have you here as well.
Thank you.
In terms of, in the middle of this mix now of what we're discussing, the improved relations, comes the issue of the multi-billion-dollar sale of the F-16 jets. How do you see that? Perhaps throwing a spanner in the works, what would be the best way to handle this?
Well, before we even address the issue of this, the F-16 CD fighters that Taiwan wants to purchase from the United States, there are some outstanding items that are left from the April 2001 package that was approved by President Bush. And it is likely that those items will go forward before the United States makes a decision on whether to sell F-16s to Taiwan. Specifically, there are Black Hawk helicopters that Taiwan has requested, and also some Patriot missile batteries, which are missile defense systems. And I think that sometime within the next 2 or 3 months, we will see those go forward. But the United States has yet to accept a letter of request from Taiwan on the F-16s. So I don't think we're going to see a decision made on those for quite some time.
I mean, with the outstanding items and with the potential of this letter for the new jets, how does China stand on that? Where does China stand on that? How does China react?
China takes a very strong stance against all arms sales by the United States to Taiwan. Of course, some weapons are considered to be even more objectionable than others, and they have taken a very tough stance against the sale of the F-16 fighter jets. China believes that it has growing leverage over the United States. The United States needs China's cooperation on a broad range of issues. The last time that the United States made an arms sale to Taiwan, which was October of 2008, Beijing suspended the military relationship with the United States and discussions on non-proliferation issues for almost 6 months. Now it has resumed with the Obama administration, and China has told this administration very clearly that if it goes ahead and sells arms sales to Taiwan, that there will be some consequences.
Well, we've got a call on the line from Virginia. Oliver, thanks for being with us, and thanks for your patience. Go ahead with your question, please.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
The question is, because of the wars that we are fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, the expenses of these wars has raised the national debt of the U.S. With China. It's almost $1 trillion. So this national debt between the United States and China, could it have the effect that the U.S. now is changing its policy, affecting the U.S. moral stance and policies in order for them to please the Chinese, so the Chinese will keep buying the U.S. debt?
Okay. Perhaps, Dr. Yang, you could tackle that first.
Well, it is true that the PRC, or People's Republic of China, owns a lot of the U.S. debt. But let's not forget that this is a two-way street. 1/3 of China's economy is export economy, and much of that comes to this country. So China's dependence on the U.S. of A. is no less than the U.S. dependence on China. So the U.S. has a leverage over China and should not give that up just to appease China.
Has that leverage, though, diminished as China's expanded more into other markets throughout the international community?
I think the dependence of China on the USA really has not lessened. China's economy has grown, to be sure, but it's pretty common for you to go to a store encountering 90% of the products made in China. So it's pretty easy to see how much China depends on the US for its economic growth.
Von Iglesias, back on the issue of the situation between the two, there's an email that came in from a viewer in Ireland, if I could put this to you, from Dara Onare. I hope I said his name correctly. He says, as long as Ma Ying-jeou is in power, it seems that the status quo is a win-win for everyone involved. China will continue to frown on US weapons sales to Taiwan, while being aware that the US has always supported Taiwan in this way. China accepts there is not much they can do but protest. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I would agree and disagree. I do think that the current policies that Taiwan is pursuing towards the mainland are win-win-win. That is, it reduces the possibility of conflict in the Taiwan Strait that the United States could get dragged into. I think that Taiwan's security is enhanced. I think that Taiwan's economy will improve as it integrates more with the mainland economy. I would disagree with Professor Yang on that point. And I think that China is backing away from putting more pressure on Taiwan as a result. So I think that this is a benefit for all sides.
Actually, that's an interesting point, Professor.
I actually have some pretty serious reservations about the so-called win-win-win type of scenario. Just recently, Richard Fontaine, a senior fellow at the Center for New American Security, published an article basically sounding the warning of the danger of over-dependence of Taiwan's economy on China. And in fact, he advocates free trade agreements between Taiwan and the US of A and Taiwan and other countries, so that Taiwan does not become a vassal state of China, so that Taiwan can maintain its independence and sovereignty.
Actually, it's an interesting point. To what extent has Taiwan been just a good excuse for China to continue to build up its military? And, of course, if the relations are improving across the strait, why continue that build-up?
Well, I think that China is building up its military for many reasons. It is certainly not just because of Taiwan, although the danger of Taiwan independence that China believed that it faced in recent years has been a motivating factor and has focused the PLA's attention like a laser on their challenge of modernization. But there are many other reasons. As an emerging power, China wants to have a stronger military. It has now sent 4 groups of ships to the Gulf of Aden to participate in the protection against piracy off the shores of Somalia. That is just one example. We don't know what China's, I think, real long-term aspirations are for developing its military. There are reports it is now even developing an aircraft carrier, which wouldn't really give it much capability in a Taiwan Straits scenario, but might be helpful in projecting power in other parts of the world.
There are more missiles, though, now pointed at Taiwan from China.
There are over 1,000, and if you include not only the short-range ballistic missiles and also cruise missiles, they probably number about 1,500 now. Although there has been improvement in terms of the economic and other contacts and exchanges between the two sides, we have seen no let-up in the military buildup by China opposite Taiwan.
And I might add that the earlier status quo that was discussed a moment ago, actually, China has taken many steps to transgress against the so-called status quo. Let me give you 2 examples. The 2005 enactment of the anti-secession law, basically saying that China could invade and attack Taiwan at the slightest provocation. And then, as we were just saying a moment ago, there are now 1,400 to 1,500 missiles targeted at Taiwan. These actions are not consistent with maintenance of the status quo. So Taiwan is increasingly placed at a disadvantageous position vis-a-vis China.
But Dr. Yang, surely it's in China's interest to try to build on the pro-Beijing government of President Ma in Taipei right now, and it risks destabilizing that government if it doesn't respond in some way, in a positive way, to the overtures coming from Taipei.
Well, so far, according to all the analyses that I have seen, China has not returned the favor, so to speak. So the given has taken part on the part of Taiwan. China has increased tourist trade to Taiwan, but China can curtail or turn that off at a moment's notice, as it has threatened to do on a number of occasions, such as the visit of the Dalai Lama or the proposed visit of the World Uyghur Association President Rabia Kadir. So China is using these economic measures as a means to affect political choices in Taiwan.
Well, I'm going to ask you both to stand by. We've got to take a very short break here. We're back with more questions in a moment. Join us as we continue our discussion after the break.